I think though that we have a very interesting class today. There's also a practical at the very, very end. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the techniques that we use in Mongo to query information. And then you'll have a big data set that I'd like you to go after. And then I have like 3 questions for a practical today, so practical 3. And so I'm thinking this will be actually quite exciting. So let me just go ahead and the funny thing is not just my settings change, but my browser settings also change. And so I have to keep doing this. The whole thing changes. There's nothing I can do about this. It's not like there's a configuration change or there's a file that needs to reset or something. It's really nothing to do with any of that. It's the nature of the software that I use and how I use it that the configuration's not sticking. Anyway, forget that. Come with me, if you will, to the terminal. Let me go ahead and get into a terminal a little bit more comfortable. And by the way, everybody, happy Thanksgiving, happy Halloween, which is going to come up very, very soon, which is like, I guess it's tomorrow. And so as you're going out trick-or-treating, remember to be safe and to wear your mask. That was really funny. Uh, thank you. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I think that just have to find out why this is so. Okay, there, that should settle that. There we go. So remember what we're going to do is when you go back to when you go down to the slides here, we're going to go ahead and start out by opening up our Docker container. And inside the Docker container, we have our Mongo. Hopefully you've done all these steps before, and so this is like nothing new. If it is new, then you have the slides to help you to figure out where we're supposed to go, what you're supposed to type in to make things happen. But I'm going to be starting here. You can follow along if you'd like. I think that since I've already done this step. In fact, we did this last time we all met. I'm going to go ahead and run this step down here because my Docker container is already it's already established. So come with me to my terminal and on my own screen, that would be. And when I go ahead and type in this terminal stuff, I'll just paste that in there, and with some luck, there we go, I can get in there. So the moral of the story here is that if you've already installed your Docker container, then you do not need to go back in and reinstall it. In fact, you don't need to do that each time. Only once in a while would be fine. The reason why you do it once in a while is because if you have any changes in your data, then you would have, or sorry, any changes in the if Mongo changes their file or something like that, or they have change a file, they change a version, or there's some kind of an update, then when you pull over the new container, then you get those up. Yeah, don't worry about this. This is all kind of cluttered. I've made my screen look a bit larger so the text is a bit larger, so you should be able to see what's going on. Now, let's go back to where we were. So come with me now to here. It's not, where's my slides? I'm losing these slides. I have all this stuff on my screen. Now, what we're going to talk about is we have been looking at some collections here. So don't forget that we have, these are the 2 commands that you really need to work on or need to remember because these commands will help you to find the database and collections that we have been looking at. So let's go ahead and try these out. So when I come back here and I type in, let's see, show, actually I'll start with show DBS here. What this is going to do is it's going to show me my databases. Now, the thing is, though, that we have already established a database here. In fact, we could have as many databases as we want. This is the server just running these databases for us. And so I think that we have really seemingly no limit to how many databases that we could have. So I'm going to type in here, use MyDB, and that means use this database that we established called MyDB. But there's another command we can call that's show show collections with an S. Show collections. And so this is the actual document that we created last time when we all met. Now, don't forget that we can actually kind of see what's inside this particular database. Or this, in fact, I should call this document. And the way you do that is by typing DB, which is like, how you signal Mongo to do something. You type in DB, followed by the name of the collection, which is the greetings. And then you type in .find. And then inside here, you'd have these 2 open and closed curly brackets here. And when you type in exit here, or sorry, but that's your command though. And what happens here is now is you have this is like your query. This is like your select star from greetings, semicolon, and then enter that. And this is everything. One thing we talked about last time is this is your acting primary key. In fact, you don't worry about doing anything with that primary key. It's automatically done for you, which is actually quite nice. The stuff that we actually entered in was all this information here. And so we were able to actually get to like hello, goodbye, bonjour. These were like these were like the fields or the attributes working with. And so let me just go ahead and say, okay, well, tell me, what do you have in the database in the way of hello? Now, if I type it like this, it's not going to happen. You'll get this error that shows up. So how can I fix that error? Well, remember, you have to say, I'm looking for hello, but I also want you to show it to me. And so we either put a 1 there, or you could put, I think it's capital true, the lowercase. There we go, lowercase true. So either that one or this one is fine. They both work. So you have this you see this first line here. I mean, there's a bunch of other things that are going on, but basically this is your query. Now, let me just show you something else, a little trick you can try if you'd like. This primary key that we see here is also kind of the same thing as this, isn't it? Same thing. It's the same thing. There is a field, and then there's some value for that field. Here, the field is underscore ID, and the value is all of this stuff here. So I would like to get rid of that. I don't want to keep seeing that on my screen. And so what I can do now is I can type in a comma, followed by, in quotes, underscore ID, and then I have this colon, and I put 0. And so, whoops, hang on here. Is it 1? Does it make any difference here? It should work. Why it's not. It should do its thing. It must have made a mistake someplace. But anyway, normally it should work. I don't know why it's not working this thing here, but it should. I'll tell you what. I'll just put. Oh, not that. It's this. I put a 0 there. So now I just have these empty places here. So that could be ignored by the machine that you use to actually go through this. But the thing is, though, that I'm now actually able to just concentrate on my query and not look at this other stuff over here. This doesn't mean anything. So that's actually a very important thing. And so remember where we're going with this, and that is that when we are working with our database, you tend to find that the queries as they come out, they don't look as attractive perhaps as they could do. Maybe it's hard to read in some cases. But don't worry about that, because typically, though, when you use Mongo, it's not a person that actually reads this. It's actually a machine. So that's why I think that you have all this. That's why you have all this extra clutter here, because it's just something that needs to be parsed out. Now let's go back to the slides for a moment here and see what else we can do. Oh, why don't we type in? Let's find out what arrivederci looks like. If I go back here and if I can find my thing, that would be handy. Here we go. Hopefully you guys can see. And if I type in this, then I can get an Italian farewell. Now, if I wanted to see everything, remember, oops, here or there, I can just remove all this, and I'm saying, show me everything. And so this is like my search space. Show me everything, but don't show me this ID underscore ID part of my data. If I change that and put a 1 saying, okay, show that to me, then I have all this extra stuff here too. But if I want to remove that, I can put a 0, and then I just get the actual kind of the meat of the matter, the actual essence of my database. So I can type in everything I want. So let's say, show me what bonjour gives me here. And again, I have to type in 1 or true to show me like what that actually means. And this says it's a French greeting. So this is all stuff that comes right out of our database. Now let me just show you something else, which is another kind of trick that you can try. You can just say, give me everything, but format it nicely so that I can read it. If you type in this command here, find open and close curly brackets, open and close curly brackets, separated by a comma, and then you have this dot pretty, then it's actually not a reference to West Side Story, I feel pretty, but actually it's organizing your database in a nice JSON file. And so, for instance, this is how your file is going to look in memory. This is what Mongo is working with. You have this, of course, you have your ID, and then you have the actual information that's part of this particular document. in our collection. And then here's our next document, because you can see that these open and close curly braces are signifying the next ID. Each document appears to have its own um, ID here. So maybe that's how you can tell that one document has ended and the next has begun. One thing I like about this example, though, is that if this were some kind of SQL database that we're working with, then that's all very interesting. But the thing is, though, that we'd have to have a field that's a little bit more general than just bonjour, goodbye, hello, buongiorno, au revoir. We couldn't have those things. In fact, we would have to have a statement, or I guess an attribute that just says, greeting or call or something. Whereas in Mongo, the very essence of this database is actually quite different, where we just put the word itself in wherever we want. Every single document has its own attribute, and so therefore we can and we don't have to worry about running creating a schema. So therefore, it's a little bit more kind of easy to work with data that perhaps we haven't seen yet. If we knew, for instance, that this was going to be a greeting, then that would inform us when we create our schema in SQL. But here we don't need to know what the data looks like before the data is actually dropped into this, which I think is actually quite it's an amazing piece of software. It's amazing engineering, I think, to think that we have software that does this. Anyhow, come back with me to the slides. Everything I just typed in just now about the pretty and everything else, it's all listed right here, so you don't have to worry about writing all this stuff down. It's slides. But I do ask you, though, to go back and look at these slides and kind of like to make yourself familiar with all of these commands, because I think that they are going to come in very, very handy. This is just a simple example. Whether is it true or is it one? What exactly are we typing in here? Well, it's both of them. You can type in true or one to get things up. So imagine, for instance, that we had another database which was just called music. I just have music on my mind right now from our project. But imagine, for instance, that you have an attribute in there that's called band name. If you have true, this would show you the band names for every single document for which band name is a part. And this would also work here too. So with that in mind, we can move into some other databases. I'll have some other examples here. Say that. Now this is we'll get to that in a moment here, just a moment. But the next one here is that if we're going back to our music document or database again, we could say, okay, well, give me, out of your entire search space, give me the band name. Everyone who has a band name, I want to see that whatever's written for their band name. And everybody who has a song, or songs with an S, every time you see those two fields here, then to report back the findings going document by document. And so you'll get everything. And so this is kind of like how you'd have the single one, just band name. But if I have band name and I have songs in this database that I'm talking about, then I'd have to separate those with a comma. And that's perfectly good. And so the idea is that when you're creating when you create your queries, all the stuff that you want to see in your search is just separated by a comma, and you have true or false written out. So it's really something like that. Let us go ahead and try making another database just to get some more practice. So this is feeling kind of cultural here. So we have French, Italian, and English again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new database called country. Now, me being me, I always have this command up here just because in case I'm working with a database in which the database country, in case the collection country already exists, I want to get rid of that so that I can create this or recreate this whole thing from scratch. So come with me now. In fact, if I just type in show collections, you'll see that greetings is the only thing there. If I type in this, it says false, because there is no collection called country. Now let's go back and copy and paste some of our code from here. I'm going to create this giant insertion here where I'm actually creating a document with more than just one piece of information in there. It's actually got several pieces. So go back over here. paste that in there. It doesn't look very nice as it's pasted, but it does work. And I know that it works because I can look at this line down here where it says write result, and that n is the number of inserted collections, and it says 1. Now, how do I know that anything actually got in there? Well, I just type in show collections. Aha, readings was old. That was something that was there before, but country is new. And again, if I want to find out what's inside country, again, you have to type in database. Hey, database, wake up. db dot period. That's how you always start these things. Then I type in country, or whatever my collection is called. Then I have to type in this dot find. Oops. And then inside there, I have to write it like this. And so that's really all that there is to it. And if I wanted to make it look pretty, then I just type in that pretty. And then if I wanted to, again, print this thing out, where I do not want to keep seeing this because this really isn't information that it's not usable information to me right now. Now, if this were some kind of quality control checkpoint where I had code that was going through and making sure that everything was, or it was checking to make sure that everything was correctly done, then I would have, I would need to know that ID. But for now, I don't need to know that ID. And so this command works perfectly. Now, let's go back and add another couple of records to this here. So I'm going to add language en. That means that the language in French, or the language in English is called French. But the language in, or the word language, or the language they speak in French is called français. The country in English, the name of the country in English is France, but the name of the country in France, in French, is La France. So you have all of this stuff here. So I'm going to go, it's basically a database which would be used for maybe a conversion, if you will, so how you can convert English to French. And so while these words are maybe already redundant, it's probably not super handy as a database, but it will help us to find out what's going on. This insertion went just fine. Go back into the next one here. So again, this country insert here, we have the language Italian, but in France they call Italian Italien, or Italien. And then we have country en, that means the country name in English is Italy, but the country name in French is l'Italie. So anyway, this is again your translation dictionary. And so you could always use something like this when you're creating some kind of a, I don't know, a language interpreter. Again, we know that everything copied over just fine. If there were a problem with syntax, then you would see a 0 or an error that would. So let's go ahead and do a db country dot find. What I'm doing is I just do these things, and I go back and I put a comma between them. That's how I remember how to put everything together here. Pretty, and then I have all this information here. Now, you'll notice that as you look through this database here, we have language en, or language in English, as a common attribute, but a common piece of the document for each of these documents, a common attribute. So what I can do now is I can say, well, give me that information. Show me what that is. So I'll just put, for instance, language underscore en. And go ahead and try this with me. Just go ahead and follow along. And say, just show me the language. You get this, just that information there. Now, again, I don't want to see this information here. I don't need that. Cluttering my view. And the more stuff I print to my screen, the more cluttered it will become. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this as a 0 here. I've made a mistake somewhere. So now I just have a comma. I'm saying just show me the language. Do not show me this underscore ID, which comes to me as a default setting. Just show me the language. And so you kind of get an idea about how this database is kind of coming together. It's going through this whole record of stuff, and wherever it finds language en, in other words, every time it finds this, it parses it out and it finds the equivalent text in each document. Okay, cool. Now let's start lumping some more stuff together here. Let's say that I have language en, and I also want to know about, oops, LANG. What is the French equivalency for all of that? So I can just go ahead and put this, and I think that I have to put this in quotes, which I've done. There you go. So now I have language EN, and I have language FR, I have language EN, and I have language FR. So basically, in each of these cases here, because of the structure of the data that as it went in, I now have the English and the French equivalencies as I go through. Now, let's just say that while that's interesting, I don't know, maybe I need to find out, for instance, some more information about, I need to know the country. What's the name of the country? So for instance, the country I could call it would be, let's just say, country, which I go EN. I have to put my quotes again. So now I have the country name. And if I have pretty, that means it's kind of giving me a subset of my data in a nice JSON format. Now, again, you can go back and you can change things. Let's say I don't need to have language FR anymore. I can put that as a 0. Or maybe it's false, perhaps. Do I have to actually take? I may have to out. Otherwise, it's saying, why would you put code in here that doesn't need to be here? Doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I can do that and remove actual pieces of information. And so you have some quite interesting possibilities now that you can do with your code in Mongo. So I think that that's basically that. And by the way, one more thing that I will say is that if you are worrying that, for instance, when you look at your the IDs that you get for each of these, here we are, this ID. These IDs that I have on my machine and the IDs that you have on your machine will be different. It's very unusual that they'd be the same. And that's just because of the randomness of my machine and how the algorithm chooses this random character, and how that's chosen is going to be slightly different on my machine because I have a different time perhaps from pushing different buttons, but it's going to be different. And so if you find, for instance, that you're looking at this slide here and you run the same command and your ID is different, well, don't worry, because the ID is always going to be different. So anyway, here are the queries that I just wrote, which I think you'll find are quite interesting. You have this, in fact, we typed in the country EN. What does this actually do here? I think that's, try this. Let me go back to my thing, my terminal. I put that in there. So what this now does, how is this different when I just have one bracket? In fact, I can, if I want, I can put another bracket there. But how is this different from the command that we just did here? Well, how this is different is that this part right here is my search space, and the search space now is the actual it's the document, isn't it? It's the document in my database. It's not, I'm not going after in the whole database. I'm not going after all the occurrences of language underscore en, but rather this is saying go to the document where, like, you know, I guess where you find this and report that to me. So wherever I find country en is France. In fact, let's see where would I find that. If I find that in this place right here, in this part of the document. And you can find, for instance, if I just go back and remove some of this code, what it's doing is it says it's going through here. Am I finding country en equals France? No, that's England. Country. Am I finding it down here where country en is equal to France? No, because I find that country en is equal to Italy. And so it finds that in this document here, that this is the only place where country en is equal to France, and therefore it shows us that particular search space. And so that is why when I type in this, I get actual, I get this this document, and not the documents that are talking about the Italian language or the English language. And so this first curly braces area, in fact, I'll put more formally, you can go without or add the other curly braces here. But this curly braces right here is defining the search space. It's saying, where do you want to find these things that you're looking for? And you're saying, I tell you to go to this document. Wherever you find this thing is true, then go to that document, and then inside that document, I want you to do some further stuff, or I want you to edit what I see. And let's just say that I want to see, let's say I don't want to see the country en, or maybe I do. Let's actually, maybe I'll do it. Let's just say, And so show you the country EN, why not? So then I think that if I just type in this, actually it's already pretty. If I type in just country EN, France, then what it's done is in my query, where I'm saying show me country EN, it just says, okay, I found the document that you're talking about, and now I found the line that you're talking about, and I guess that's really all you want. That's where this information comes. Now, this would be important because it could be that I have like other country EN attributes, or maybe I have a whole bunch of other things in there that I want to go after in each document. But I don't want to have them from every single document. I want to go after the specific stuff in specific documents. And so I would use this command here to define the document that I'm looking at, wherever this is true. And then when you find this, then go into that document and then find this and report the result. Let's do another one here, just to kind of drive this point home. Let's go for language R. I think it's just still not typed. Language FR, and then I have to put a 1 there to say, show me that. And there we go. And so now I'm saying, locate this document. Now locate these attributes in that document. And then format everything to me and make it look pretty, make it look nice. Otherwise I'll get lost. So that's actually quite remarkable. You can see that while the code itself, when you first see it, and I will say that when I first saw this, again, I had some kind of an allergic reaction, just as I did when I first saw SQL. I thought, how can I ever remember this stuff? But actually, when you think about it, this is always the same. It doesn't change. It's like it's basically the same types of queries when you're doing a search. And so it's kind of just using this binary system. It's not very diverse as a language, but it does get the job done. Again, you have some information over here where you can kind of like play with things. We just play with them in a bit, or in our own way we just did. Now, what I'm going to do is we can talk about this over here. This is how you actually kind of like destroy that table. The greetings.drop. Remember, this destroys the data and moves the collection. That means everything is gone. And so unless you've backed everything up, you can't get it back. It's irrevocably gone. Here's another one here. We can actually destroy this. You can destroy a country if you want, and then that's gone too. And this is how you'd actually like get out of the terminal and want to get it. But actually, what I recommend is do not destroy these things just yet. Just leave them there. They're not doing any harm to your computer, and they really don't take up much space. And so I would say leave that data there so that later on you can come back and play with it. But if you wanted to, if you created a database you don't want to use anymore, then you could always just do it that way. So anyway, now what we're going to do is we're going to, if you go to this, if you go to your sandbox file, you'll find that there is this file there called synthetic data small.json. Let me just go to my my terminal and I'll just show you how to work with this. So I'm going to go to my not my editor. I'll go here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually I'm going to open the file. Let me just open the file, and then I'll show you like how to work with it. So I'm going to go to I'm going to my my lessons in class docs. I'm going to the sandbox, and inside there I find the synthetic data small. And by the way, the word synthetic, when applied to data, means that the data is fabricated. It's not real data. And so this information that we see now, while it looks juicy and wow, we have some names and some emails and some other stuff, and phone numbers and addresses and all this information, it's really untrue. There's no truth in any of this data at all. In fact, I picked up this data. In fact, I can even show you where I got it. On the slide itself, you can see there's that link next Json Generator, where you can actually generate some of the data yourself. We're just going to use this just to examine how the database would work. Now, getting back to your editor, if I can find my editor, here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the whole thing here, and I'm hoping that this will just work the way it is. It's one giant insertion. And so I'm just going to go and just select everything. I just hit Control A, and I select everything. Now, it's very important that you do actually hit Control A, and that is because you need to get to the very bottom of this thing as well as the very top of your insertion. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Then next, what I'm doing is I'm going to go back to my terminal. Come with me. I go right here, and I'm going to just dump this information in there, and hopefully this will do its trick. And when I just pasted it in there, you may have to do it a couple of times here, but when you paste it in there, please look out for this bulk write result. And in particular, look out for this line right here. It says n inserted or number inserted. Well, what is the number of things inserted? What does that even mean? Well, that's the number of records. We go back here. That's all this over here. And I can see that this, there's one curly brace right here that ends here. I can tell it ends here because there's another ID over here. So each record actually has an ID, and so that's how I know what everything is. Now, hopefully there's been no trouble and you've all been able to paste in this data. It does feel exciting, I gotta tell you guys. It does feel exciting. I feel like I'm kind of, doing some kind of investigating reporting here. Where I've secured a secretive database, and I'm going to find out who's in it, and find out how old people are, and what their balance is, and if they're active. I have no idea what any of these things mean. It's all made up stuff. But we do have some interesting ideas, though. We have the notion of different types of data that they offered here. So, in particular, we have strings, which are offered in the data. We have integers, or maybe even you can call it categorical data. It may be a 0 or 1. You have to kind of like look at the other data, but still, you can think of it in terms of index or integer. Then we have over here Boolean data is active. Then again, this has numbers in it, but because you have this $sign, it's a string, alphanumeric, and so that's why they have quotes in here. Then again, you have more strings, integers, strings. This is interesting. This is an array. So for the name, for instance, I now have an array of, for instance, the first and last names of of whoever this person is. I feel so prying in some case, like I'm kind of like going through them and trying to figure out, like, their dark details or something. I have some kind of. It feels like I have some illegal data on me, but actually it's not illegal. It's just made up. But that doesn't mean we can't pretend. Here we have company, Radiantix. What a name. Here we have their email at penningtonmossradiantix.tv. Sounds very reputable. We have their phone number. It doesn't go through if you call it. I don't know. I haven't called. I just made that up. But don't call the number in case it does go through. This. Would you say, hi, I just found your number in a database? That would be scary. So anyway, but what I'm saying is, so you have all these different types of data that you can work with. I'm looking for something else. Here's another. This is another array. That array over here, tags. These are all culpa. That doesn't. Yeah, culpa. Someone who's culpable or guilty in some way. But we have these. We have these different types of. This is a different kind of an array here. Then we have like a list here. I think that the thing is that when you do a search for tags, you get all this information here, perhaps. I'm not exactly sure what. Here's another type of array we can do. And so you have all this different information. This is actually quite interesting. Here we have a friends field, and in their friends field, you have many databases that exist in there, or many fields. So for instance, each friend has an ID number. So I can say, give me the friend of this person if they're friends with Lucia. The name of the person if they're friends with Lucia McLean. Anyway, so we have all this information in there. So let's just go after some of these things. And in fact, I think if you go to the slides, you find some of the more interesting queries that we can run to kind of get an idea about what's in there. So this database that we just created is called the employee database. I'm just going to copy this over here. I'll copy that. I'll go back to my terminal, and when I go ahead and type in this, I get some information. So I'm going to remove. Let me just remove this annoying ID. I'll put 0 there. So I just get the name here. Now, what I wanted to say is, what is this information that's coming out of this? Well, this is the search space is the whole database. It's the whole It's the whole collection, everything, all the documents inclusively. Now, what this is doing is it's going through and it's finding out that if anybody has a field called name.last or name.first, then to show those names. And so you can go back to, I guess the best way of showing you this would just to break to the editor here. You can see that some of those names in there. So the first name I'm going to look for is someone called Pennington Moss. Well, I think we saw that person. So if I go back to the top, Pennington Moss, that's this field right here. It's looking for that name right here. And so name and first, name and last, that is this business where you have name dot first, name dot last. So that's how you're saying, show me the actual information that comes out of that array here. See what I mean? So you're saying here's the main tag, and then here's like a subclass of that. Here's another subclass. And so you're saying, show me this first name and show me this last name in this category. For this, we call it this part of the document. Anyhow, so there's that. And so we have some pretty interesting things to play with. If I go back to my slides, to make you feel sick by doing all this. Here's another one we're using the name.last. If I just go ahead and paste that in there, I should be able to get the name and the company. And I'm going to just remove this. Oops. That ID. So again, what I'm doing is I'm actually going inside that name array as we saw before, but I'm not actually looking for both names. I'm just looking for the last name. But over here, after that, it says for each of these records, publish the address, give you the address. And so this 321 Banker Street in Mokino, Kansas, is the address, and that would come out of. Let's just see where that would come out of in the editor. If I go back over here, where's Kansas? Right here. So it says find that information here. And so what it's doing is we're saying, give me the address, whatever information you have for the address, and then it goes through, does its parsing, and it says, I found the comment. Found this. And that is how this whole system is going to come apart. Let's go back to the slides. So what else do we have here that's kind of cool to work with? Let's see here, company and friend's name. So I want to know, this is actually really, it's not very ethical, but if this is my employee database, I want to know who my employees' friends are. That's just wrong. I shouldn't be making such a query. But as this is all made up data, it doesn't really matter. So again, what I'm doing is I've typed in this command here where I have company, where I'm saying show me the company for each. As you go through each, as you're looking at the whole collection in general, go through the country data, whatever they have there, show me that information. Find the friends' names information and show me that, and don't show me the ID information here. And so let's see what we get here. I'll go to the top here. Radiantics. The friends, I get this kind of small JSON file where I have actually the name Lucia McLean, Nadia Soto, and May Elliott. I like those names. If I go to my editor and let's see who those people are. The names come from here. Lucia McLean, Nadia Soto, and May Elliott. And so this is all the information that you get from friends. And so you can see that when you run a query like this, it's actually just pulling that information out directly as it finds. And so there's that. And so the thing is that once you have created this once you've created a search that looks like this, then if you're using a machine to do this work, then you'd collect this as a piece of text or something, and then you'd use some kind of JSON, I guess a kind of a parsing library. If this were a Python program, you'd parse this out in JSON, which is actually quite easy, library, and then it would just return the names to you. And so while we can get the information right now, it's not really in, what do you call it? It's not ready. It's not the output is not ready for prime time. it's the information is there, but you couldn't just take this stuff out and then shove it into an online form. You'd still have to parse out the actual names before you put them into an online form, if that's the information that's requesting. Let's go back to the slides again. Let me just kind of see what else we have here. This is a different type of query command at the very, very bottom here. As we remember, now I don't want to know about all the records that are in my collection, all the documents in my collection. I only want to know about the first record where I have company is equal to Radiontics. And so here, when I type in, in fact, maybe I can put pretty here and see whether that makes any difference. There we go. The difference between this query here and this, where I get all these different names, is that here's the information that pertains to the company Radiontics, but here's the information that pertains to the company Bradza. And here's one that pertains to ProSure, and then Combogen. By the way, if you're looking to start a company, I would recommend going to this database and just pulling these things out. They're made up, after all. Combogen could be not bad. Where do you work? Oh, I work for Combogen. Anyway, so what this is doing, though, this is your search space. And so this is saying go to this document where the company is equal to Radiontics. And then once you're inside that document, then start mining out this information here. Not showing me this ID, but showing me the friend's name. And so that's why everything is kind of more kind of relaxed here. One thing I'll try doing here is I'll have a comma, and let's put another one. I'll put friends, oops, Friends, friends, last, I think that's what it was called. And I'll have one. So now, does that even work? It's friends. Just go back to my okay. Let's see what it's called. Where are we now? Oh, we don't have a friend's last name. Sorry. We do have ID. We can go after ID. Let's see what the ID says. So if I go down here, we don't have friends last, but I can look at the ID. Won't work. I guess we can't. Oh, you know what? I've made a mistake here. There we go. Remove my IDs. Take someplace in here. Funny, it should be showing me the IDs. Well, anyway, doesn't want to. Friend's name. I guess it doesn't. Maybe we're not ready for this code just yet. But still, it in theory it should work with other records. I guess maybe it doesn't work. I'll just spend some more time looking at it. But in theory, it should work though. So anyway, but this is the main thing that we're looking at though is that we're looking at this particular document, and in that document we're looking at these particular pieces of information. Now, if I went ahead and removed, let's just remove this piece over here, something you can try, then you're getting information about all the friends in your database. But notice you have no information about which document they come from. We know that they come in the order that the documents are listed, but we have no information about how they're actually being shown. And so you might decide to do something where you can kind of, let's go back here. What do we have? We can look at the names. How about names first? Put that in there. So I'll go back here and I can type in names first. Is this going to work? I have to put some quotes, I guess, don't I? I'll tell you what, actually. So you now have some information about, what do you? Yeah, so we have some information about the names of these friends here. Anyway, you get the impression about how this kind of how you can write some of your queries. And so what we're going to do now is, well, there's a practical, but before we get to the practical here, don't forget that here's the search space, and by the search space, when you're doing a find command here, your search space is really pertaining to the document. Which document exactly are you looking at? A specific one, or are you looking for all of them? If this is blank, then that means you're looking for everything. You're going through all documents. But if this has some constraint, It means to go into a particular document. If you have, for instance, your attribute here, if you're looking at it, and then over here, you're saying that inside that document, show me a specific thing. Now, let me just move on to the next thing. We have like a minute. This is your practical 3. Please have this done by the 2nd of November, which I believe is coming up on that Monday next. Yes, that's Monday next, by next class. Next, by the starting time of next class, what you're supposed to do is you have this classroom link that you can click on. You go ahead and log into your class, your Google or GitHub Classroom. And once you're inside that classroom, what I ask you to do is, let me just take you back to, oh, sorry, you couldn't see what I'm talking about here. Here's the link, if I can find it. But here's the link. What I'm asking you to do is you click on this link, and it'll take you into your practical repository. Now, what I'm asking you to do is, if you go back here, let's get out of this for a second. I'll get out of that too. If I go into my repository here, yes, 12, class docs, lessons. If I go here, I have week 9. Oops. Inside my sandbox, you'll have this directory here called practical, 03 practical. In here, you have some queries that I'd like you to follow through with. And by that, what I want you to do is, I've given you the output of each query, just 3 of them. I've given you the output, but I want you to find out what was the query that you typed in to get to this output. And this is using exactly the same data that we've just done in class, this synthetic data. And once you have finished with these 3 things, and just check your output to this output, make sure that's the same. But once you have finished with this whole thing, then you're to submit this. But what I want to say is, like, when you actually do submit this, going back to the slides, when you submit your work here, copy out the entire directory with 03 practical, this whole directory here, copy this whole thing out, and then paste it into the repository that you get to when you type in this command or this link. That's your practicals repository. So just paste in 03 practical. Don't move it, but copy it in there. And then you work on your practical in there. And then when you're finished, you can go ahead and just up and submit. That's all done by the 2nd of November. There's only 3 questions. It's a checkmark grade. So now you can create and populate a Mongo base, and you can write sophisticated queries. We've done all this in 1 week. Pretty cool. Are there any questions at all before I let everyone go? Okay, well, okay, I'll let you guys all go. Please do not forget about your practical. I can't go back and give you extra points on these things. If it's not in by November 2nd, then that's it. Everybody, stay well, be safe, and have a great weekend, and have a safe Halloween too.